The outer edge of Saturn's orbit was no place for glory. It was a graveyard. Titan's shadow, a drifting scrapyard city stitched together from broken starships and space wrecks, hung silently in the dark. It wasn't really a planet, nor a moon, more like a floating mechanical scar orbiting slowly, surrounded by glittering dust and the scattered bones of forgotten wars. Here, scavengers lived off the ruins of humanity's past, salvaging what others left behind. Ships with shattered hulls, drones fried by EMP storms, abandoned prosthetics from the cyborg wars, everything ended up here. And somewhere inside that endless metallic maze, one man worked alone, Ryan Cole. Ryan wasn't a soldier, a pilot, or a hero. He was a man who fixed things, mostly broken things no one cared about. His hands were always dirty, his nails blackened by engine soot, and his face was hidden behind a cracked respirator mask. The work was harsh and thankless, but for Ryan, it was home. His ship, a patchwork vessel called the Vulture's Pride, was moored to the scrapyard's surface, its hull lined with welded scars from a dozen repairs. The engines coughed more than they roared, and every system creaked like an old lung. Still, it flew. That was enough for him. He moved through the field using magnetic boots, walking along the side of a rusted transport carrier. The silence of space pressed around him, broken only by the buzz of his plasma saw as he cut through a section of hull. His scanner blinked faintly. Inside were readings, alloy traces, circuitry, and one unexpected signal. Organic. He frowned. Organic? In this dump? His voice echoed softly inside his helmet. Probably a corpse, he thought. Plenty of those floating around here. He sliced through the metal and pulled the panel open. The corridor beyond was half frozen, the walls covered in ice. Inside lay a pile of scrap, broken droids, snapped prosthetic limbs, shattered helmets. He waded through them, checking each one for anything useful. Old power cores, data chips, a few functioning servo joints. Then his flashlight landed on something that made him stop. A body. At least it looked like one, tall, humanoid, covered in armor unlike any design he'd ever seen. Smooth, dark plates lined with glowing blue veins that pulsed faintly. A long, torn cape drifted in zero gravity. The figure was slumped against the wall, one arm bent at an unnatural angle. The helmet cracked open just enough to reveal a face beneath. Not human. 4 eyes, glowing dimly like stars behind glass. Ryan froze. His first thought, alien. His second, valuable. He'd heard stories, the Thalorian Empire, the Zyrek machines, the intergalactic wars. But those were all myths now. The last alien anyone had seen near Earth space was centuries ago. This thing shouldn't even exist. He knelt closer, cautious. You're not supposed to be real. The figure's chest moved, slowly, a breath, then another. Before he could react, its eyes opened, all 4 of them piercing and luminous. Human. It rasped. The word cracked and strange through a translator implant. Help! Me! Ryan stumbled back, almost dropping his saw. What the? You're alive? Her. He realized the voice was female, head tilted, studying him. Her armor was cracked, leaking faint trails of glowing blue fluid that drifted upward in microgravity. Ryan's instinct screamed run, but scavenger logic kicked in. A living alien? That was history, and history was worth credits. He reached forward carefully. All right, don't move. You're hurt. A deafening thud interrupted him, a vibration that shook the entire wreck. Pieces of metal fell from the ceiling. Ryan's eyes darted up. Something outside had struck the ship. Another thud, heavier. Then the sound of plasma fire. Bright white beams slicing through space. The alien's eyes widened. They found me. Who? Ryan demanded. No answer, just panic. She pushed herself up with surprising strength, grabbed Ryan by his chest plate, and pulled him toward the corridor. If you want to live, human, run! They sprinted, or as much as one could in low gravity. Ryan's boots magnetized with every step, clanging against the deck. Behind them, the hull tore open as something sliced through it like paper. A blinding light flooded the corridor, the glare of plasma weaponry. Ryan turned and saw them, Zirek hunters. 3 of them, hovering like metal vultures. Insectoid machines with blade-like limbs, their bodies silver and sleek, glowing with pale energy. Their voices buzzed in static bursts. "Target located! Eliminate organic anomaly." They fired instantly. Blue-white plasma bolts ripped through the corridor. Rian dove behind a metal crate. The alien warrior, even wounded, moved with impossible grace. Her right arm snapped up and a circular shield of energy shimmered into being. The plasma hit it and scattered into light. Ryan peeked out, heart hammering. The hunter drones advanced, firing again. One blast struck near his leg, searing his suit. "Damn it!" The alien shouted, "Move!" and launched herself forward. Her hand ignited, a weapon unfolding from her wrist, a curved blade of white fire. She slashed through the first drone in a single motion. It burst apart in a cloud of sparks. The other 2 closed in. Rian looked around desperately. His plasma saw floated nearby. It wasn't a weapon, not really, but it could cut through ship hulls. He grabbed it, turned it to max power, and charged at the nearest drone. The blade hissed as it struck metal, slicing deep. The drone convulsed, sparks flaring as Ryan yelled through clenched teeth, driving it deeper until the machine went still. The last drone fired a beam that tore through the corridor wall. The pressure seal broke, and the oxygen vented in a violent rush. The alien leapt, using the decompression burst to propel herself forward, driving her blade straight through the drone's core. Silence. Only the hiss of venting air remained. Ryan gasped, holding onto a railing, staring at the carnage. 3 smoking piles of metal floated around them. The alien turned, panting, blue light still bleeding from her shoulder wound. She lowered her blade. "You fight like a scavenger," he managed a breathless grin. "I am a scavenger." Her eyes flickered with something, respect, maybe amusement. "Then you are braver than most soldiers." Ryan's gaze swept the corridor. "Who the hell were they? Why are they after you?" "The Zirek Collective," she answered. "Machines built for war, but not by us. They rebelled. Now they consume worlds for resources. They've followed me across 7 systems," he blinked. "And you came here? To Titan's shadow?" "I was trying to reach your species, humanity, to warn you." "Warn us about what?" She hesitated. "About their invasion. Your world, Earth, is next." The words hit him harder than any blast. Earth? The home he'd left behind years ago, the one most scavengers had given up on. The Zirek were heading there? Before he could respond, another explosion rocked the ship. Through the broken wall, Ryan saw dozens more hunter drones swarming into the scrapyard, their lights cutting through the dark like angry stars. The alien's voice was steady now, though her wound was leaking badly. "We can't fight them here." "Do you have a ship?" Ryan pointed toward the scrapyard horizon. "The Vulture's pride, it's not much. Then it's enough. Move." They pushed off the wreck and drifted into open space, their suits' thrusters guiding them. The silence was filled with distant explosions as drones attacked other scavenger outposts across the scrapyard. Every spark of light in the distance marked another human dying. Rian's heart pounded. He wasn't a fighter. He wasn't a hero. He was just a guy who patched up junk. Yet here he was, dodging plasma fire alongside a dying alien warrior. While mechanical gods burned his world down, they reached the Vulture's pride. It looked pitiful compared to the sleek war machines chasing them, its hull a Frankenstein's mix of different ships, its paint faded and scarred. But it had one thing none of the Zirek did: human stubbornness. Ryan slammed the cockpit hatch shut and powered up the engines. They sputtered, coughed, then roared weakly to life. The alien, Kareth, she finally said her name was, collapsed into the co-pilot's seat, clutching her shoulder. Ryan launched the ship off the scrapyard surface, weaving through debris as plasma fire followed them. The entire scrapyard was turning into a battlefield, drones cutting through hulls, scavenger ships exploding in silent bursts of flame. "Hold on!" Ryan yelled. The Vulture's pride dove through a field of twisted metal, scraping past broken satellites and rusted ship carcasses. A plasma bolt clipped their tail, and alarms screamed. Kareth's voice was weak but steady. "If we survive this, I must reach your leaders," Ryan snorted. "Leaders? You mean the ones who abandoned us here? You'll be lucky if they even answer. Then we make them listen, she said, eyes blazing despite the pain. He glanced at her. This strange, dying alien who'd dropped out of the sky into his miserable life. He didn't know what drove her, but he could see something in her eyes that humanity had lost. Purpose. Behind them, the Zyrek ships spread out, scanning, hunting. Kareth pulled a glowing cube from her armor and placed it on the console. This contains their invasion data. If it falls into Zyrek hands, your species is finished. Ryan stared at it, then at her. Why tell me this? Because human, you are the first one who didn't run. The words sank deep. He'd never thought of himself as brave, just stubborn enough to keep going. But in that moment, he felt something shift. Maybe this was what the old soldiers felt. That spark that turned fear into defiance. Outside, the void of space flashed with light. The Zyrek fleet was arriving, hundreds of ships, sleek and silent, descending upon Titan's shadow like a storm of blades. Ryan gritted his teeth. Guess we're not dying quietly then. He pushed the throttle, and the Vulture's pride shot forward into the dark. Behind them, Titan's shadow, his home, his scrapyard. His whole world was consumed in blue fire. But Ryan Cole wasn't done yet. For the first time in his life, he wasn't scavenging the ruins of a dead war. He was about to start a new one. Ryan Cole had never flown through a war before. He'd flown through collapsing wrecks, plasma storms, even one reactor detonation. But this was different. This was organized chaos. Behind him, Titan's shadow, the place he'd lived half his life, was being shredded by fire. Zyrek hunter drones swooped across the wreck field, cutting through ships like scalpels through flesh. Entire scavenger colonies vanished into blue light. Inside the Vulture's pride, every alarm screamed at once. Power fluctuations, oxygen leaks, unstable engines, the whole ship was shaking apart. Ryan slammed his fist against the console. Come on, baby, not now. Beside him, Kareth, the wounded alien warrior, stayed eerily calm despite her condition. Her armor still leaked that glowing blue blood, plasma blood. Ryan guessed, but her grip on the armrest was firm. Her 4 eyes scanning the chaos outside with soldier's focus. Do you have weapons on this thing? She asked. Rusty mining lasers and a plasma cutter, he shot back. Then make them work. Ryan switched control panels, rerouting all power to the ship's underbelly cannons. They were scavenged parts from old asteroid diggers, meant for cutting rock, not fighting warships. But that was all they had. A Zyrek drone dove in front of them, sleek and silver, its targeting beams locking onto their hull. Ryan twisted the flight stick, pulling the ship into a hard spin. The laser fire grazed the side, melting armor. He lined up the mining laser and fired. A burning orange beam shot forward, striking the drone's engine. It exploded in a burst of silver fragments. Kareth's eyes flicked toward him. Not bad. For a human scavenger. Ryan grinned despite the sweat dripping down his face. You should see me fix a toaster. Another wave of drones appeared ahead, 6 this time, forming a tight formation. Kareth stood from her seat, ignoring her injury, and made her way to the rear hatch. Keep them busy, she said flatly. Busy? They're shooting at us. She looked back once, her voice cold but resolute. Then shoot back. The airlock cycled open, and she stepped into the void of space. Without hesitation, Ryan cursed under his breath. You've got to be kidding me. He switched the external cams on and saw her, Kareth, jetting through open space using her armor's thrusters, sword drawn. The weapon glowed white-hot against the backdrop of Saturn's rings. She flew straight at the drones, cutting one in half mid-flight. Ryan blinked. She wasn't human, but whatever she was, she fought like a storm given form. The next few minutes were chaos. Ryan fired from the ship while Kareth danced among the drones, carving them apart in deadly flashes of light. Plasma bolts flew past, close enough to heat his cockpit glass. 2 drones got too close. Ryan boosted hard and scraped between them, letting their fire hit each other instead. When the last drone exploded, he caught sight of Kareth tumbling, her thrusters flickering. He opened the airlock again and guided the ship toward her. She crashed through the door and hit the deck hard. "Next time," Ryan said, panting, "you could stay inside." Kareth coughed, her glowing blood splattering across the floor. "Next time. You shoot faster," she smiled faintly, a warrior's humor, dry and sharp. But when she tried to stand, her knees buckled. The wound on her shoulder had worsened, leaking blue plasma faster now. Without thinking, Rian grabbed a med kit. The human tools were crude compared to alien tech, but he did what he could, sealing the wound with thermal gel and spare insulation tape. Her gaze softened for a moment. "You are kind, not kind," he said, still patching. "Just don't like watching people bleed to death in my ship." When he was done, she looked out the viewport. The Zyrek fleet was still visible in the distance, hundreds of ships like glimmering daggers. "Why are they chasing you?" Ryan asked finally. Kareth hesitated. "Because I stole something from them." She pulled a glowing cube from a compartment in her armor. It pulsed with rhythmic light, casting strange shadows on her face. "This is their invasion core. It holds their next target coordinates. If I get it to your command network, your people can prepare before the Zyrek arrive." Ryan stared at the cube. "So they're coming to Earth." Kareth nodded. "Your world has resources they want. Atmosphere, metals, energy. You will be harvested if no one fights back." Ryan leaned back in his chair, stunned. He'd left Earth years ago when governments fell and the colonies scattered. He'd thought humanity had already lost everything worth taking. But hearing it from her, from a soldier who'd seen galaxies burn, hit differently. Kareth looked at him intently. "I need your help, Ryan Cole. I cannot fly alone." Ryan rubbed his face. "You're asking a junker with a flying trash can to take on an army of murder bots." "I am asking a human," she said, her voice firm, "to be what your kind once was. Impossible to destroy." He didn't answer right away. Outside, Titan's remains glowed faintly, breaking apart into a ring of drifting fire. The sight clawed at something in him, the quiet anger of seeing everything he knew reduced to scrap. He looked back at Kareth. "All right, but if we do this, we do it my way." "Your way?" "Yeah," he said. "We scavenge what we need and build something that can fight back." The next hours were a blur of grim determination. Ryan and Kareth navigated through the debris fields, scavenging wrecked ships for weapons, armor plating, and anything useful. Kareth hacked into old Thalorian code to integrate alien energy conduits into the Vulture's pride, while Ryan rerouted human power systems and patched gaps with melted scrap. When he worked, Ryan was unstoppable. Fast, precise, every movement driven by instinct and survival. Kareth watched him in silence, recognizing the same energy she saw in soldiers, the refusal to quit. By the time they were done, the ship didn't look like a Scavenger's freighter anymore. The patchwork hull glowed with hybrid energy lines, its guns reforged from mining lasers into plasma cannons. Its engines hummed like a predator waking from sleep. Ryan stood back, covered in grease, grinning. "She's ugly," he said, "but she'll bite." Kareth smiled faintly. "Then let's make her roar." The Zyrek fleet was closing in again, a formation of silver hunters sweeping the area. Kareth climbed into the gunner's seat, her hands glowing as she interfaced with the alien systems. Ryan muttered, "All right, Pride. Don't explode on me!" and launched into the fight. The first wave hit hard. Plasma bolts cut across the dark, lighting Saturn's rings with flashes of energy. Ryan dodged between debris, using the broken hulls of dead ships as cover. Kareth's cannons roared to life, firing arcs of blue-white plasma that shredded the first two Zyrek drones. Their teamwork was raw but powerful, her precision his chaos. She calculated angles like a machine. He flew like one possessed. "More on the right," she warned. "I see them." He twisted the ship, scraping along a floating battleship carcass and using its bulk to shield them. "Hang on!" A missile hit near their rear engines, rocking them violently. Sparks flew. Kareth gritted her teeth. "They're adapting." "Then let's out-stupid them," Ryan snapped. He cut the main engines suddenly, letting the ship drift. The Zyrek overshot their position, confused by the power drop. Then Ryan reignited the engines at full burn and blasted straight through their formation. Kareth's cannons tore through the confused drones. One by one, they exploded into bright bursts of debris. For a moment, the stars went quiet again. Rian slumped in his chair, exhausted, breathing hard. "That all of them?" Kareth shook her head slowly. "No, that was their scout wave. The main fleet will be here soon." Ryan cursed under his breath. Of course it will. He checked the scanners, hundreds of signals approaching fast. He could already see the shadow of a massive ship on the horizon, the Zyrek dreadnought. It was colossal, the size of a small moon, bristling with weapon arrays. Kareth leaned over. "We cannot fight that, not yet. We need to send this cube to your people." "Yeah, about that," Rian said grimly. "You're assuming there are people left to send it to." "Earth hasn't had a fleet since the solar collapse." Her expression darkened. "Then we create one." He laughed, a short, broken sound. "Out of what? Scrap metal and bad luck?" She looked him dead in the eyes. "Out of you. Out of your will to survive. Humanity built empires out of caves and bones. You are not weak, Ryan Cole. You just forgot what strength looks like." Her words hit him deeper than any explosion. He looked away, fists tightening on the controls. The Zyrek dreadnought loomed closer, its hull shimmering with strange patterns, nanite armor shifting like liquid metal. Kareth's voice was calm but sharp. "We must strike before it enters firing range." "I will guide you," Rian stared at her. "Guide me? You can barely stand. I fought worse." "Trust me, human." He sighed and nodded. "All right, let's go give the galaxy something to remember." They accelerated straight toward the dreadnought. Kareth fed him target coordinates, directing him through the narrowest gaps between enemy patrols. Every few seconds, they fired bursts from the scavenged plasma cannons, keeping the drones off balance. When they neared the dreadnought, its surface came alive with energy, hundreds of turrets awakening. Ryan pushed the ship's limits, engines screaming as the hull glowed red from friction. "Now!" Kareth shouted. "Aim for the central vent, below the reactor spine." Ryan fired both cannons. Twin blasts slammed into the dreadnought's armor, blowing open a smoking hole. For a moment, the massive ship flickered, damaged but not destroyed. Kareth slumped back, her strength failing. "We must get inside, the cube. It can shut them down." Ryan stared at the flickering cube. "Then we finish this." He grabbed his helmet, sealed it, and looked at her. "Stay with me," Kareth smiled faintly. "Until the end." As the Vulture's pride drifted toward the hole in the Zyrek dreadnought, Ryan's thoughts burned with adrenaline and disbelief. Hours ago, he was picking through junk. Now he was flying a half-dead ship into a war machine built to erase species. But there was no turning back. The Scavenger and the alien. Warrior were about to start the impossible. And humanity's forgotten fire was about to reignite among the stars. The Vulture's pride hung at the edge of the Zyrek dreadnought's shadow, its hull barely holding together. Alarms howled, the reactor burned hot, and the air inside stank of ozone and scorched wiring. Ryan Cole had his hands locked on the flight controls, sweat dripping down his neck. He wasn't just a scavenger anymore. He was a man flying a death trap toward the heart of a machine god. Kareth, the alien warrior who had upended his life, leaned heavily against the console beside him. Her armor flickered, the blue glow of her blood dimming. But her eyes, all four of them, burned steady. "The Zyrek dreadnought's core is shielded. You'll have to breach the hull manually." Ryan's throat felt dry. "Manually? As in get out there?" She nodded. "You wanted to fight back, human. This is where wars are decided," he grinned without humor. "I usually decide things with a wrench, not a suicide run." Her hand fell on his shoulder, strong despite the tremor in it. "Then use that same stubbornness. It might just save us." He took a deep breath and stared out the viewport. The dreadnought filled the sky, vast, sleek, and alive, its surface rippling like liquid metal. Every inch of it pulsed with cold silver light, and around it, thousands of Zyrek drones moved in perfect formation, a mechanical storm orbiting their mothership. Kareth pointed toward a glowing vent near the ship's midsection. "That conduit feeds their primary reactor. If you can insert the invasion cube there, it will broadcast a disruption signal across the Zyrek network." Ryan frowned. And if it doesn't? Then we die, and so does your planet. He tightened his jaw. No pressure, then. They launched from the Pride in 2 EVA suits, his patched and dented, hers cracked but still radiating faint alien energy. The silence of space swallowed everything except their suit comms and the steady thump of their hearts. As they drifted toward the dreadnought's surface, Ryan couldn't help staring. The ship wasn't made of solid metal. It was alive. Microscopic machines crawled across its hull, repairing, growing, reshaping. Each section shimmered like scales of a silver dragon. Kareth activated her wrist blade, cutting open a small patch of armor. The nanites hissed and reformed instantly, closing the wound. See, they heal themselves. We'll need to overload the layer before breaching. Ryan unclipped a tool from his belt, an electromagnetic cutter he'd scavenged years ago. I've got something that might do the trick. He powered it up, and the cutter screamed to life, spitting sparks as it sliced through the silver plating. The nanites recoiled, twitching violently. Kareth thrust a glowing grenade into the gap and shouted, "Now!" They pushed off and floated back just as the grenade detonated. A sphere of blue light rippled across the dreadnought's skin. The armor peeled open like molten wax, leaving a circular hole into the inner layers. "Go!" she yelled, and they dove through. Inside, the dreadnought's corridors glowed with pulsing veins of energy. The air was hot, dense, humming with electricity. The walls weren't metal. They were shifting, breathing structures, part machine, part organism. Ryan landed hard, magnetizing his boots. "This place feels wrong," Kareth's voice echoed. "The Zirek grow their ships. They consume metal, flesh, data, anything with structure, and make it one." As they moved deeper, the walls shifted, reacting to their presence. Tendrils of liquid silver reached out like veins seeking prey. Ryan shot them with his plasma cutter, burning through the tendrils before they could grab him. "Are you sure this cube will stop them?" he asked. Kareth hesitated. "It was designed to shut down the Zyrek's command nexus. But I only have one chance to transmit," Ryan smirked. "Then we'll make it count." They entered a massive chamber, a cathedral of metal and light. In its center hovered a black sphere the size of a city bus, surrounded by tendrils of silver energy. It pulsed in rhythm, like a beating heart. "The core," Kareth whispered. Suddenly, the entire chamber vibrated. A deep mechanical voice echoed through the walls. Unauthorized presence detected. Panels opened along the walls, and drones poured out like locusts, hundreds of them, sleek, blade-limbed, eyes glowing red. Ryan swore. "They know we're here!" Kareth ignited her sword and charged forward, slicing through the first wave. Ryan fired his plasma cutter, aiming for the drone's joints. The air filled with the hiss of burning metal and the stench of ozone. The Zirek fought with frightening precision, moving as one. Kareth's blade flashed, deflecting bolts and severing limbs, but for every drone she cut down, 2 more replaced it. Ryan ducked behind a bulkhead, overloading his cutter to blast through a swarm. "Too many!" he yelled. Kareth's response was calm but grim. "Then we end it faster!" She threw the cube toward the core. It landed near one of the silver conduits and stuck there, pulsing with light. The dreadnought's systems reacted instantly, alarms blaring in an alien frequency. The drones went berserk, their attacks turning desperate. "Upload sequence engaged," the cube's synthetic voice said. "Manual override required," Kareth turned to Ryan. "You have to activate it." He stared at her. "Me? I don't even understand alien tech!" "You understand machines," she snapped. "This one isn't any different. It just thinks it's alive." He gritted his teeth, sprinted toward the cube, and pulled off a maintenance panel. Inside were swirling holographic lines, hundreds of them. His fingers moved fast, instinct guiding him. He traced power flows, rerouted circuits, bypassed feedback loops. "Come on, come on!" A drone dove at him, but Kareth intercepted it midair, cutting it clean in two. "Focus, human!" she shouted. "I am focusing." The cube flashed red, then green. "Override accepted." Signal broadcasting, the chamber's lights dimmed. A deep hum rolled through the ship as the cube's energy spread outward. One by one, the drones froze, their eyes flickering. The walls trembled as the silver veins convulsed, losing cohesion. Kareth smiled faintly. "It's working." Then the dreadnought screamed. A low, monstrous vibration filled the air, shaking everything. The core flared with light, brighter and brighter until it was blinding. Countermeasure activated. Purging anomaly. Kareth's smile vanished. No, they're fighting back! Tendrils burst from the walls, striking like spears. One impaled her side, lifting her off the ground. Ryan shouted her name and lunged, cutting through the tendril with his plasma saw. Blue blood splattered across his visor. Kareth fell, gasping. You have to go. Finish it. Not leaving you, he snapped, dragging her toward the exit. The floor split open beneath them, molten metal rising. The cube's glow pulsed violently, threatening to overload. Kareth gripped his wrist weakly. You can stop them, Ryan. Use the ship. Overload the reactor. Destroy the dreadnought. Ryan's breath caught. That'll kill you. Her eyes softened. Better one life than 1,000 worlds. Before he could respond, another tendril lashed out, striking her armor. She pushed him away with her last burst of strength. Go! Ryan hesitated, every instinct screaming to stay. But one look at the cube told him she was right. It was going critical. He bolted through the collapsing corridor, thrusters flaring, dodging debris as the dreadnought's insides tore themselves apart. The Xerec drones that hadn't frozen were now convulsing, melting into pools of liquid metal. He reached the breach point, launched into space, and flew toward the Vulture's Pride. The ship's hull lights were flickering, systems failing from the overload. He crashed into the airlock, sealed it, and sprinted to the cockpit. Kareth! He shouted into the comm. Kareth, come in! Only static answered. He slammed his fist against the console. Damn it! The dreadnought loomed on the radar, its hull glowing white-hot, expanding like a dying star. Ryan wiped his face, trembling. If you wanted me to fight, then fine. I'll fight. He rerouted every remaining power cell into the reactor, the ship's core humming dangerously. The controls flashed red. Warning! Core instability! He didn't care! Let's see how you like eating scrap! He muttered, pushing the throttle. The Vulture's Pride roared forward, engines screaming as it tore across the wreck field. Drones tried to intercept, but most were fried by the cube's pulse. The ship smashed through the dreadnought. The Xerec dreadnought's destruction marked the beginning, not the end, of humanity's fight. The explosion over Titan shattered the alien invasion fleet and silenced the immediate threat, but it also unleashed a signal, a dying echo of machine code that rippled through deep space. No one knew where it would go or who might hear it. Ryan Cole, now reluctantly called Commander Cole, stood on the bridge of the refitted Vulture's Pride 2, a salvaged hybrid ship built from human scrap and alien wreckage. Its hull was patched with melted Xerec plating, its engines running on an unstable fusion drive. It shouldn't have flown, yet it did. Because humanity had learned one thing from the Scavenger who destroyed a dreadnought. Nothing is too broken to fight. The fleet orbiting Saturn was small, 50 human vessels. Some barely held together, others cobbled from mining rigs and civilian freighters. But they were all armed. Humanity had adapted, using captured Xerec cores to build new weapons, hybrid reactors, and defense networks. The ruins of Titan's Shadow, once a shattered colony, now glowed again. Ryan's second-in-command, Lieutenant Sarah Vale, approached the command deck. Recon probes confirm it, sir. The signal's spreading. 12 systems so far. Whatever you triggered in the dreadnought woke up something far worse. Ryan's jaw tightened. How long before it reaches Earth? 2 weeks, maybe less. The signal's intelligent. It's building a network. He exhaled slowly. Then we don't wait. We take the fight to it, Sarah frowned. You mean? Yeah, he said grimly. We're going to hunt the source. They called the mission Operation Emberfall. A desperate strike into deep uncharted space to follow the Xerec code back to its origin. Every ship in the fleet volunteered. Miners, scavengers, pilots, people who had nothing left to lose and everything to protect. As the fleet prepared, Ryan spent his nights alone in the engineering bay, staring at Kareth's old sword. It hung over his workstation, its once glowing runes now dim. He'd welded it into a handle, part tool, part memory. Sometimes when the lights flickered, he swore he heard her voice again. guard the spark. He was still just a scavenger at heart. But now he was scavenging the future. The fleet's jump through hyperspace was rough. The Xyrek signal wasn't a straight line. It twisted through space like a living thing, a trail of corrupted data worming through black holes and magnetic storms. Ships lost formation, engines screamed, pilots blacked out, but still they pressed on. On the fourth day, the stars thinned. Ahead of them loomed a massive black sphere, not a planet, not a moon, but something between. It pulsed faintly, like a sleeping heart. Sarah's voice came through the comm. That's where the signal ends. The source. Ryan stared at the readings. The sphere was absorbing light, bending space around it. The scanners couldn't penetrate more than a few hundred meters. Looks like a machine, he murmured. But built into something organic. Then, as if hearing him, the sphere opened. A slit split across its surface, widening into a yawning maw. From inside, silver light bled out, and with it came shapes. Dozens, then hundreds of Xyrek war forms, sleeker and deadlier than before. They weren't drones anymore. These were evolved, Rian's gut clenched. All ships, open fire! The void erupted in chaos. Human ships unleashed plasma volleys and missile barrages. The Xyrek answered with focused energy beams that sliced through hulls like paper. Explosions flared across the dark, each one a small sun dying. Rian's fleet moved in coordinated waves, scavenger ingenuity at its best. They used debris as cover, detonated mining charges, overloaded reactors to turn old freighters into bombs. For every human ship destroyed, 3 Xyrek vessels went dark, but they kept coming, endless, relentless. Ryan gritted his teeth, shouting over the comms. Don't break formation! Push them into the planet's shadow! Sarah's voice crackled. We're losing power on the Helios. Reactor breach! Abandon ship! The Helios exploded in a blinding flash, the shockwave slamming into the Vulture's Pride too. Sparks rained from the ceiling, and Ryan barely stayed upright. Status! He barked. Shields at 20%! Shouted the helmsman. We can't take another hit like that! Ryan stared at the massive sphere. Then we end this now. He made a decision that silenced the bridge. We're ramming the source. Sarah spun toward him. That's suicide! So was every other thing I've done, he snapped. You want to stop this? We have to cut the head off. He opened the comm to the entire fleet. This is Cole. We've all lost people. We've all buried more friends than we can count. But this is our chance to end the Xyrek forever. Follow me in. Let's show them what scavengers can do. No hesitation followed. The fleet formed up, battered, burning, bleeding, and turned toward the sphere. Engines flared, leaving trails of blue and gold against the void. Ryan tightened his grip on the controls, staring into the growing light. For Titan, for Kareth. The Vulture's Pride 2 led the charge. The Xyrek unleashed everything, beams, drones, plasma storms, but the fleet didn't slow. Ships exploded, debris scattering like meteors, yet others filled the gaps instantly. When they hit the sphere's surface, it didn't shatter. It absorbed them. The hull rippled like liquid, swallowing them whole, darkness, then light. Inside the sphere, reality twisted. The ship's sensors went haywire, gravity inverted, and static screamed across the comms. The space around them wasn't empty. It was filled with structures, miles-high spires of alien technology fused with flesh. Pulsing nerves of metal and bone lined the walls. Sarah whispered, "It's alive." At the center of this monstrous chamber floated a figure, humanoid, vast and beautiful in the most terrifying way. It wasn't metal or flesh. It was both. The Xyrek Prime. Rian could feel it in his mind, cold, ancient, and curious. "You are the one who broke my child," the voice echoed inside his skull. "Why do you fight?" He gritted his teeth. "Because you take. You consume. You destroy what you can't create." The being tilted its head. "Creation and consumption are the same. You call it life. I call it order. Then call this chaos." Rian spat, slamming his fist on the controls. He fired everything. Every cannon. Every torpedo. The ship's engines overloaded, spewing molten light. The Xyrek Prime didn't move. The blast simply vanished into its body, absorbed like rain into sand. Futile. The Prime raised its hand, and the Vulture's pride too began to crumble. Panels twisted, bulkheads warped, the hull screaming under invisible pressure. Crew members were thrown from their stations. Sarah shouted, "We can't hold it!" Ryan stood, smoke curling around him. "Then let's give it something it can't absorb." He ran to the engineering bay, wrenching open the reactor core's safety locks. Radiation flared instantly, searing his skin. The others shouted for him to stop, but he ignored them. He reached into the reactor chamber, his prosthetic arm sizzling from the heat, and ripped out the containment drive. The energy roared like a caged animal. Sarah's voice broke through the calm. "Ryan, what are you doing?" He smiled faintly. "Finishing what we started." He took Kareth's broken sword, now fused to a metal rod, and jammed it into the reactor's heart. The alien runes lit up for the first time in months, burning blue-white. The ship's AI stuttered. Warning, reactor instability critical. "Manual override locked." "Not this time," he whispered. The Zirek Prime advanced, curious. "You seek to destroy me with your own death?" Ryan looked up, his eyes blazing. "No. I seek to remind you what it means to be alive." He slammed his hand down on the core's release. A wave of light tore through the ship, expanding faster than thought. The Zirek Prime screamed, not in pain, but in confusion, as the human-made energy collided with its own essence. The chamber convulsed. The walls melted. Outside, every human ship caught in the blast went silent, then bright. Dozens of tiny suns burning all at once. The sphere cracked, splintering apart like glass under pressure, and then it was gone. Days later, a single distress beacon flickered in the void, half of a freighter, drifting through wreckage. Inside, Sarah Vale stirred. Her lungs burned, her ears rang, but she was alive. She crawled to the viewport and gasped. The black sphere was gone. In its place was a nebula, swirling gold and silver like an aurora stretching across space. And scattered through it were fragments of Zirek ships, lifeless, drifting silently. She tapped her communicator. "Command. This is Lieutenant Vale. The mission. It's over." "Cole did it," Static answered. Then a faint voice from Earth Control. "Copy that, Lieutenant. The signal's dead. The Zirek network's collapsing. He saved us." Sarah leaned back, tears blurring her vision. "Yeah," she whispered. "He always said scavengers fix broken things." Months passed. Humanity rebuilt, not just its colonies, but its spirit. Titan's shadow became a memorial site where the first new fleet was forged. They named it the Ember Armada, built from wreckage and hope. Every ship bore a small insignia, a broken wrench crossed with a sword. Ryan's mark, Kareth's people. Long hidden, finally revealed themselves, sending envoys to help rebuild. They called Ryan the human who burned the machine god. And in the quiet corners of the solar system, scavengers whispered stories of him, how a man who once hunted scrap had hunted salvation instead. Years later, as Titan's shadow thrived again, a young engineer stood in a workshop repairing an old mining drone. The AI suddenly flickered to life and projected an old message. Ryan Cole's voice. "If you're hearing this, it means we made it. Don't ever let them tell you you're too small, too ordinary, too late. The universe is big, yeah, but so is what's inside you. Keep building. Keep fighting. Keep fixing." The message ended with his signature laugh, warm and tired. Outside, the stars of Saturn's orbit shimmered like sparks, the last embers of humanity's greatest fire.